Hey guys, Maniac here with Mind of Maniac doing a new episode. And I wasn't planning on doing another Mind of Maniac this soon, but I got a request from a comment on one of my videos, and the request was they wanted me to talk about why I thought that video game movies were always crappy. I think he might have used a different, more colorful word, but the point was certainly well taken. I've seen plenty of video game movies out there. While I have never had the displeasure of watching anything Uwe Boll has made, or maybe pleasure, I don't know. I guess you know, sometimes people love to hate them. I don't know. I haven't seen any of his movies, but I have seen plenty of others. I've seen Max Payne. I've seen Wing Commander. I've seen Super Mario Brothers. You know, I've seen a whole bunch of them. And I wanted to talk just a little bit about. Now I know that a lot of people have beat around the bush about why they think that it has to do. Why they think that you know, this kind of thing is true. But it seems like nobody has gotten the idea that I've gotten. And I think that especially when it comes down to what's been coming out of oh god, what's his name's mouth, Roger Ebert. What's been coming out of Roger Ebert's mouth. I think that is not the stymie of the problem, but I think that's just the product of the problem in the beginning. And that is, say what you will about Roger Ebert, everyone's going to say it. I happen to think, boy, I really would love to hear his opinion. I would love to know if he actually pays for the movies that he goes to see. And if he doesn't, he should. But that having been said, I've listened to Roger Ebert talk about films on and on and on. And trust me, when it comes down to what he knows about films, especially old films, this guy really does know his stuff. However, his expertise is in films. That's what he knows. That's where his expertise is. And does he know even thing one about video games? Well, he's never played a video game before. He admits to that. People have tried giving him video game consoles. Don't ask me why. We don't know if he's played them. And so what is it? So I think that what's going on with Roger Ebert, now, by the way, I'm not blaming Roger Ebert. I happen to think that when it comes down to his knowledge of, especially with classic films, he really does know his stuff. But that having been said, you don't go to your math professor to get information about your English work. Do you kind of get what I'm saying here? Now, a lot of people have basically claimed that, you know, basically the reason why that video game movies are made is because are bad, are because that the people that make them are all hacks. Like the directors are hacks, or the writers are hacks, or basically they're whoever they can get on the payroll and everything else. I'd like to think not. I mean, there certainly have been movies made by competent people, but the thing is that, and I think this is what the problem is that the movie industry doesn't get the games industry. Now, I will explain that statement. They either have two things. Usually what it comes down to is basically movies are expensive to make. Well, then again, so are video games. But movies are expensive to make, and in order to basically get money into your project, if you're going to have a project that's going to cost money, then you basically got a lot of people that are going to be putting their opinions in it. You got to have the opinions of the directors. You got to have the opinions of the producers. You got to have the opinions of basically movies, especially high-budget movies nowadays. And Kevin Smith knew this very well. Are basically movies by committee. They're not one person stands up and basically takes charge. And to be perfectly honest, in most of these cases, especially when it comes down to some of this stuff, is that the people that actually do have the opinion, or I should say the dominant opinion, usually has the opinion that's wrong. Now, it's on a case-by-case basis, but for the most part you'll notice that, and everybody will say this, is that that movie was a product of this guy, you know, or this guy was a product of that movie. Most of the time the director takes the fall, but I can tell you, you know, after hearing some very interesting Hollywood stories, that the producer can sometimes be just as likely to be the reason why a movie is terrible as opposed to the director. Or the producer can be just as big of a reason why a movie never gets made or something like that. Writers usually will plead innocent to basically whatever ends up on the final version of a screen. All that kind of stuff. What I'm going to state really well specific examples about what I think, why I think this. Roger Ebert's reason, I think, was just kind of the tip of the iceberg. But I think that that is the product of the problem. And that is that movies and video games are, of course, two different mediums. But they're also done by two different people. There are experts in, you know, I would like to consider myself someone who knows the video game industry, but I'm not a film studies major. I watch a lot of movies, and I watch a lot of behind-the-scenes documentaries on movies, and I watch a lot of criticisms about movies. I don't agree with them in a lot of cases, but that's neither here nor there. But video games I know because I've been following this industry for so many years. Quite a long time. So, if you ask me what's up with some of these movies, I will basically say is that the people that are making them either have complete contempt for the source material or complete ignorance to the source material. Case in point, understanding of a movie or understanding of a video game is more than just knowing a person's name or dropping a person's name. You have to also, if you're going to have a character, for example, replicate that character. The character's mannerisms, the character's actions, not the, the character's dialogue, or at the very least, you would believe that a character with dialogue that you've seen already, if you gave him new dialogue, you would believe, oh yeah, he would say that. And when you watch a movie like Max Payne, for example, you can just tell that the people who made it had really no comprehension about the subject matter that they were dealing with. They might have played the video games, but for the most part, they had no understanding of what they were doing. Like, I remember listening to the audio commentary for Max Payne, for example. The director was saying when they used, like, one of the self-storage units, and it was called, like, Gognidi's self-storage. And the director on the audio commentary was like, oh yeah, just name drop it. Really? Would have been nice to see Gognidi in there. No mention of him. They just put the name up there just because. Could have been John's self-storage. Didn't have to be Gognidi's. It's like, if you're going to invoke the source material, invoke it right. It's not hard to do. And I think that's another thing, is that the people that really do know what they're talking about are not the people that actually get the shot to do it. I mean, it happens a lot with the comic book movies. Before, 20 years ago or something like that, very rarely, especially in the late 90s, the people that were making these superhero movies and stuff like that were deviating for the source material, and you could just kind of tell that the people that were making them really had no concept of understanding of what the source material was. This is happening all over again. Now, I'm going to cite more specific examples. It's more to just, like, for example, what's been going on with the Uncharted game. David Russell recently was kind of in talks to helm the new, if there was going to be, Sony was going to be making an Uncharted movie based upon the Uncharted Drake's Fortune property. Basically, everything that came out of David Russell's mouth was totally wrong. He wanted to basically not make, his ideas that he was saying for the movie that he wanted to make was not an Uncharted movie. Now, I like David Russell. I think Three Kings is one of the best movies I've ever seen. I loved everything about it. And heck, to be perfectly honest, I liked some of the people that he listed for casting choice ideas. Like, I think he listed De Niro, and I think he listed Pesci. But the movie that he wanted to make was not an Uncharted movie. It was his own movie that he wanted to make, and he could have made it, but there was no reason to put the name Uncharted on it. It's not Uncharted. It wasn't Uncharted, David Russell. You might have thought it was Uncharted. You might have really thought it was Uncharted, but it wasn't. You had a story that was completely wrong. So you got that. So you got that on one side. And on the other side, you got, like, let's say something like the Wing Commander movie, which was actually, ironically enough, directed by the guy that came up with, it was directed by Chris Roberts. It was directed by the guy that actually had the Wing Commander, had created Wing Commander, had directed the Wing Commander games. And the other thing is like, his development house at the time, I think it was Digital Anvil, was doing the special effects for a lot of that stuff. Some of the CGI effects, I remember seeing Digital Anvil credited in the, and that was his development house. In fact, actually, there was a clip or two of Wing Commander movie actually used in Digital Anvil's movie. Digital Anvil's game Starlancer. So they reused the video effect. So they had to have had the ability to if they were going to do it. I believe Starlancer released after Wing Commander movie. But that all having been said, Chris Roberts, and you can tell, can make one hell of a great video game. I mean, the Wing Commander series was great, heck. But he wasn't a movie guy. He had his own ideas, but the casting was completely wrong. Now, don't get me wrong. I think that I was glad that they were able to get David Warner and God, what's the guy, Jurgen Prochnow actually to be in that Wing Commander movie. And I actually think that I actually don't mind the Wing Commander movie that much. I know that everyone probably universally hates it, and I gotta say it's stupid. But you know, that movie I happen to enjoy quite a bit. I just like watching it. The thing about it was that you could kind of just tell, like, either Chris Roberts was like either, you know, you could just kind of tell this was Chris Roberts' first movie as far as I looked up. He had made plenty of video games before, of course, but it's like basically you took a guy and put him out of his element. You had, you know, it doesn't work that way either. When you get a film guy trying to make a game, or you have a game guy trying to make a movie, it's just what, you know, you got a problem there. You need to either have somebody know what these, you know, be good at both. You need to literally have and someone who actually does get the subject material. That hasn't happened. It just hasn't. There's not been something that's actually happened under those circumstances. Like for example, this is not a video game reference, but for example, when you had a guy like the director of Star Trek Nemesis, for example, they hired a director for Star Trek Nemesis that openly admitted to never having been a Star Trek fan. So why'd you hire him? Wouldn't you want somebody familiar with the subject material already? Of course, he did say later on, you know, it's like, oh yeah, like with anything, I did become familiar with it afterwards. Yeah, I guess not familiar enough. I guess not, you know, you should have had more, you know, should have had more time to get acquainted. I mean, if, like I said, I'm not gonna, like I said, if you guys, I'm not going to make a claim about Star Trek Nemesis or a review of Star Trek Nemesis. If you want to see that, then you can just check out Mr. Plinkett's video about it, because he did a pretty good job, and I'm not going to tread on his toes. But it's the same basic principle. You have people that are basically put in here, and these are people with egos. These are people with opinions. These are people with egos. These are people, and there's a lot of money involved. You're talking about millions upon millions of dollars. I don't know exactly what the major budget is on some of these movies, but I would say, let's say, what, $67 million for some of these movies sometimes, $100 million, what, $100 million? And that's a lot of money. And when you have that much money, then you've basically also got studio managements also with their own opinions. You've got studio execs also with their own opinions. Yeah, it's actually two different types of people. Studio actually had branches upon branches upon branches upon branches of people that they pay money, a lot of money for some odd reason. And all they seem to do is probably just pass the buck to one another. But that all having been said, and then you've got the directors. And with, like for example, with Uwe Boll, for example, and then you basically also have this whole organization is set up. It's like you're playing on our terms, meaning this is basically it. When it comes to the movie industry and the video game industry, if the video game industry wants to make a movie, the video game industry is told by the movie industry, we know what's better than you, we know better than you. You do it on our terms, and you're going to like it. Okay? That's what's been happening, actually. That's usually what you're told. That's usually what it's told. And if you don't believe me, that's what Microsoft was told when they wanted to make the Halo movie. Microsoft wanted to make a Halo movie a couple of years ago. They almost did. They were really close. They had a producer, they had a director, they had a script. And Microsoft said in no basic terms, they said it to 20th Century Fox, they said it to a few other people, it's like, you can all bite, but you make it on our terms or you make it with respect to our subject material. And the movie industry basically said no deal. And the movie was never made. And the team that would have made it made District 9, which was a fantastic movie. District 9 was what the Halo movie was going to be. That was that team. They had that team. Peter Jackson on production and Neil Blomkamp on movies. After District 9 took off and became a major success on the small budget I think that they had, but that movie did quite well financially. The interviewers did ask, you know, the team, okay, you got it. You did it. You know, they're going to listen to you now. Can you make the Halo movie? And they said, absolutely not. Like, we're not making the Halo movie now. Not with what we had to deal with. And you could just tell that if they said no, it must have been a pretty terrible experience. It must have been an awful experience. I'm not saying that I blame them because I don't know what's been involved with the thing, but I'm guessing is that that's basically what happens when you deal with this kind of industries. The movie industry thinks that they know the best. Now they don't. You couldn't argue that. You know, you couldn't argue that they know the best every given time. They couldn't possibly. I mean, nobody is right 100% of the time. Heck, I even flub a mistake every once in a while. I can flub a line. I actually ignorantly said a Greek god was a Norse god. You know, a Norse god was a Greek god. You know, I flub all the time. So you can't rely. You know, the way the whole organization, the way the whole movie industry is set up, is non-conductive to making a good video game movie. That's the problem. The problem's the industry. The problem's the people in the industry. The whole industry's broken. Sure, they can make a movie. If you want to make a movie, they can make a movie. But you can't make a video game into a movie. It's more than just the fact that you're translating the interactive medium to this. It's that you've basically got people that don't know what they're doing. And when you do have people that don't know whether it be a film guy not understanding what a video game is, or a video game guy not understanding what a film is. And that's basically been, and then basically if they don't know that, then whoever's making the movie basically makes the picture that they want to make, and with the $450,000 or so that they slap for the license, just slap the name on it, basically. And that's the third, you know, that's the other thing that'll happen. Now, is this going to change? Probably not. Not unless the video game industry actually decides to start their own movie industry, which Ubisoft has. Last I remember from last year's E3, Ubisoft did announce that I think they're forming their own movie industry if they haven't already. Like how I guess Marvel Studios actually has their own studio now. Ubisoft is trying to get their own studio with, you know, I think probably because they're going to turn their properties into movies, and they want to, if they're going to have to play, they have to invest the money themselves. They have to have the studio themselves. That's what Marvel did. You'd think that DC be able to do that, but they're a wholly owned subsidiary of Warner Brothers. You'd think that being under Warner Brothers, they'd be able to have their own studios, but the truth is that no, they don't. They don't have that right. In fact, actually, DC properties, as far as I know, can actually be licensed to other movie studios if they want, or distributors if they wanted to. In fact, the Batman movie, the one made by, directed by Neil. I'm sorry, Neil. Well, who is his name? John Peters and Peter. God, what's the other guy's name? The first Batman movie, the one produced by Michael Uslan and Mel Nicker and everything else. The one with the one that ended up being with Jack Nicholson and Michael Keaton. That Batman movie. That was originally going to be released to United Artists. It wasn't until somebody smart at Warner Brothers, I think it was one of the head guys over there, realized, you know, that's actually our property. We own DC's legacy. Why don't we actually make this? But when you'd think that with having the rights, like for example, Sony owns movie studios. You think with having these rights, or owning the companies that are making these products, or being owned by the companies that make these products, it would actually make for the opportunity to have better synthesis on these films. But in truth, it's like no, because you have bureaucracies on top of bureaucracies on top of bureaucracies on top of bureaucracies on top of bureaucracies. And if you don't believe me, look at how Viacom is, or, you know, how many companies are on top of Viacom. Now CBS is on top of Viacom, I guess. I don't know. But when you deal with bureaucracies, nothing good can come of it. Really, not really. You need to have somebody who understands both well. And people that are hired that understand everything well, and somebody that actually will hire those people that have an understanding, that can pick the people that know what they're doing. You have to have a director and a producer be in sync. Both know what's going on with this movie, with these games. You have to have them hire a writer that knows what he's writing about. You have to have him hire actors that have the mannerisms down, that have the natural personalities of the people that they're portraying on screen. You don't usually see that. You just don't. You might have a few that look like the guys, but for the most part, And I really do respect actors. Like, I respect like all the guys that were in Super Mario Brothers, for example. They were just actors that were working with the subject material that they had. And to be perfectly honest, they didn't actually do a bad job. Was it a Mario Brothers movie? No. But for the movie that it was, the actors did a great job. Heck, even Dennis Hopper did a great job. I love to hate him in that movie. But it wasn't, whoever basically wrote that script basically was like, okay, I'm going to pull this off the shelf. I'm going to replace this guy's name with Mario. I'm going to replace this guy's name with Luigi. And I'm going to replace this girl's name with Daisy. Cut, print, here you go, Mom and Pop. You can go make this movie. Okay, hire Bob Hoskins, John Leguizamo, and oh God, Fisher Stevens. I love that guy too. I loved him in Hackers. So that's basically why I think that the video game industry and the movie industry just don't work. This is I think what's been going on and why video game movies have been terrible up to this point. I do think, and I truly do believe this, Microsoft should basically force their way into the movie industry. Microsoft was actually told to do this by a lot of people around 2007, especially right after things were going on with the Halo movie. And basically that got shut down. They cut the project. They shut down the project, and everybody told them, you guys have more money than anything. Why don't you could make the movie you want with the money that you've got. And Microsoft told them, it's like, we're not a film studio. We don't have those kind of skills. We can't make the movie. What are we going to do? It's like, we're going to release it as software. They're a software company. Microsoft execs realize that. It's like, we don't have the skills to make the movies. We have the skills to make software. We have the people to make software. We have the skills to release software. But we're not a movie studio. We can't make or release movies. We have the money to, sure, but we don't have those kind of skills. And that, again, I think that goes back to what the problem is that the people that are making it just don't have the comprehension of what they're working on, and vice versa. The people in the game industry don't know the movie industry. The people in the movie industry don't know the game industry. Will that change? Maybe in the next 30 years. Because I think what's going to happen is that in 30 years, you're going to have new people coming into the movie industry that have video game backgrounds, not from what would you call it? Not from like making video game backgrounds, although that occasionally might happen, but people that know and that have the experience in playing these games. And when that happens, that'll truly be a great day. That'll be truly a great day for the film industry, and that'll truly be a great day for the gaming industry. I really hope that I'm looking forward to see whatever Ubisoft decides to make. But as far as I know, I haven't read about any announcement that they made. Everyone's assuming that they're probably going to make a Assassin's Creed movie, but I can't just up and tell you that's what they're doing because I don't know for myself. I'd like to thank everyone for listening. Listen to me rant on about this. I'd like to thank whoever asked me to do this. Again, if you want me to just talk about anything else, please just post a comment. I'd be more than happy to talk about whatever you guys want me to talk about. Please visit my site, gameaccess.net. This is Maniac with Mind of Maniac. Over and out, guys. Take care.